What the hell did I just watch?
What's up? It's Film Frenzy, and I just got back from seeing an early screening of the film Poms, and I'm excited to talk about it today with my first category being direction and visuals. Let's get right into this.
The direction and visuals are very standard. I feel like they could have gone a bit above and beyond, and I love to see movies like this do that, but that's very uncommon. And instead it was pretty much the standard point and shoot during conversations. Nothing was really bad by any means, like it wasn't particularly bad or anything, but nothing really stood out. There's a couple nice shots of like close-ups, like hands like touching or some other type of shots like that that had a bit of artisticness, but there's very little. And I feel like especially with like the cheerleading routines, they could have gone a bit above and beyond and shown some really just like nice direction and stuff. Like the choreography and the cinematography of the dance routines is not bad at all. But I feel like they could have just done some more interesting shots, and they were a bit lazy with the direction and visuals. There are some exterior shots thrown in here and there. They're very pretty, but they're so standard and just so stale. I would have loved to see them take a bit more risks, but that's not the type of movie that it is, and I kind of knew that going in. So for the score for this category, I'll be giving it still a solid 4 out of 5. There's nothing wrong with the direction and visuals, but there's nothing that really makes it stand out by any means.
Now let's talk about Poms' acting and character development.
I'd say the acting overall is not bad by any means, but sometimes it's hard to tell because the script is so terrible. I'll get into that more later, but when you look at the cast, it's really respectable. You got Diane Keaton, Pam Grier, Jackie Weaver, 3 phenomenal actresses with a ton of just their resumes are massive, very well respected in the fields, tons of other ones, some young actors that were pretty solid too. But I feel like sometimes their acting is very odd, and that's not really a reflection of the actors. Like, I don't think that Diane Keaton did a bad performance, but I think it's often the writers were very torn on like how they wanted to define their characters. Like, I think the standout, like the best character in the film was probably Jackie Weaver's character. She was just very well developed and fleshed out and very believable, and I like that. She did a great performance as her, but there were some problems with the main character, Martha, played by Diane Keaton. I feel like they kind of had a very mixed and kind of contradicting like personality of her. Like, it was all over the place, and that kind of made Diane Keaton, like, her acting seem very weird. But I think that was just the lines and just like the really just screwed up character development. And there are characters that change throughout the film, but in the most unnatural and unbelievable ways possible. It was so dumb. Like, for example, the young girl who helps them out in it, she starts off the film so mean, like a terrible person, and all of a sudden, in just like a snap of fingers, she switches. And it made no sense. There's a lot of characters like that. Like, for example, one of the women in the cheerleading team, her son, is just a terrible person, but the way he talks to them is just so unbelievable that the bad writing seeps into the character development and makes it just really just bad. And very few characters are well developed, and most of the characters on the team aren't, and that's fine. Lots of these in silent movies, it's really usually like the main 2 or 3 people in the team are developed. Same thing goes for Ocean's 11. But unfortunately, even the main ones besides Jackie Weaver's character aren't even developed much at all. And then the kid, Jackie Weaver's grandson, he has some decent development. I think the actor who played him was great. I haven't seen him in a movie before, but his facial expressions were so damn entertaining as I was watching the movie, so I love him just for that. That was really awesome. And his character was decently believable, but I just felt like overall there was very little development throughout the film that was believable, and overall the characters weren't really developed to begin with either. So that's a big problem here. I'm only giving this category a 3 out of 5. Overall, still they had a great cast, and the acting is not bad at all. And there's a couple characters here and there that are pretty well developed, and there are definitely some changes in the characters, but the changes aren't great, and there's still big holes in the characters that weren't developed, unfortunately.
And for my final category, I'll be talking about the story elements of plot, pacing, script, and theme.
So going into this movie, I just knew about the premise, and I thought initially, I was like, well, that's kind of a gimmicky premise. I feel like I'm not going to get a good movie out of this, and I was kind of right, unfortunately, but what I thought was also that it's kind of like intriguing at the same time. Like, a bunch of old women in this residential senior living place, and they decide to form a cheerleading team because they never had their dream. It's so cheesy and corny, but at the same time, it is still very like entertaining. Like, you want to watch it, and I think that's great. And if it was handled really well, I feel like very few writers and directors could have pulled it off. But if it was handled well, I think it could have been a phenomenal movie. Unfortunately, it lacks that nuance. It not even gets close to that nuance, actually. And that's very sad, because instead of like expanding on the premise with a very dense plot that has a lot like of just like key components to it, they kind of just let it ride. And like I said with the direction visuals, there's just overwhelming like laziness in the production of this movie. That's just really sad, because if you're gonna make a movie, and I know they're trying to have it like where like, because there's not much parts for older women, I think that's great. But if they're gonna have it, why don't they show off like a great movie that has parts for older women to encourage it? It's almost like just disrespectful to all the actors, everybody involved in it, that they didn't go like try to go far. Like, if you're making a movie like this, trying something to go all out, and they just play it so safe to the film's detriment. And if it was just a plain safe movie, just not offensive at all, just plain scotch free, maybe it's like a decent 2.5 out of 5. Like, it's an okay movie. But sadly, I feel like there are definitely some big faults. The plot holes are just so numerous, and it's just very odd. The pacing is mediocre. It's only an hour and a half, so it doesn't feel like a very long movie. I didn't get bored at all. It's very entertaining, and a kind of strange mix of shock humor and some entertaining parts that are actually legitimately like just quality entertainment, and some so bad it's good, which is the majority of the entertainment, unfortunately. But at least the pacing isn't terrible in that, like, it's not all stop and starting, which is, like, the only thing that is consistent throughout the film is the pacing. Other than that, the plot is kind of all over the place and just weird, and I feel like there's kind of mostly a lack of it. Like, they just kind of have these generic, like, antagonist characters that are so lazy and unbelievable, like I touched upon in the character development, and then they have their heroes, and it's so cliche, and it has the worst cliches also, and then it just mixes them in with random bits of, like, just really just surprising moments that I guess grab the audience, but not exactly in a good way. And the script is probably the weakest element of all of this. There are a couple good lines here and there. Like I said before, there are some great jokes, but most of those are just due to shock of like being in this film and like the context of them. But overall, the drama is so melodramatic and bad. This should have been a very emotional movie, and it could have touched me, but I feel like it really just didn't get to me at all. And I'm not like a person that's like really hard to relate to a bunch of movies. Like, even if it has nothing to do with like me on like a literal level, like usually I relate to movies, but I feel like it was just the writing was so stale and bad, and just sometimes it was just laughably bad, sometimes it was just eye-roll cliches, but whatever it was, it just didn't get to me at all, and I'm really upset about that, because there's some really deep underlying, like, themes in here about, like, death and stuff, that, yeah, maybe they didn't fit with the comedy at all, which the tone is just so all over the place. Huge whiplash from the tone. I think, like, I talk about tonal inconsistencies a lot on this channel, but I think this might be the biggest tonal inconsistencies in a movie I've ever seen. And I know that's a bold statement right there, but I firmly believe it, and it was just rough getting through that parts of it, but that also made it entertaining at the same time, even though objectively that's terrible movie making right there. But other than the script, I would say the themes, like, it's, you know, you're kind of generic, like, oh, we only got one life, let's make the best of it, we can still accomplish our dreams, which is what I thought would happen coming into it, but I feel like they didn't even do that well. Like, if it was a safe movie, like I was saying before, the regular 2.5 out of 5, it would have a core theme that was just throughout the film, very clear, maybe a bit too overt, but nevertheless, it was there, and maybe it resonates a little bit, even if it's cheesy. But this, I feel like it barely even touched upon the main theme, and I thought that's just a huge problem. It's like, that's kind of what you were aiming for, and so I think the themes category is a bit lacking. I know I did talk about there's some stuff about death, and there's a lot about it, and it's really strange and dark, and there's some humor about it that is really weird, and yeah, I guess that's good and kind of surprising, because I like when movies surprise me, but it's not always in the best way. And so overall for this category, it is very rough. Maybe the pacing is half decent, and the plot isn't entirely awful, but it is pretty bad overall. The script is just miserable. There's so few moments of decent scripting and actual, like, good dramatic dialogue. I can barely even conjure up in my head one scene that I thought had really good resonating drama in it. And the themes are barely even there, and when they are there, they don't even fit with the rest of the film. So this category, I'm giving a miserable 1 out of 5. Yes, I know, I'm very sorry, that's a very offensive score, but I have to be honest here, there's very little to take away from the story elements, and since that's my most important category, that's gonna tank this movie's overall score down. So before I reveal the overall score, I just want to give my overall impact on the film, and I'll say one major positive before I close it out, is that this film, it's kind of inevitable, but in having a group of older people, like they're in their 60s and 70s, like playing the main characters and having this motive that they want to finally be cheerleaders, I thought that was great. And that in movies, I feel like all the time it's either the old characters just result in pity, they're there for annoyance of the younger characters, they're just kind of there as set pieces, maybe they're there for a searing drama, but I feel just a more realistic, down-to-earth portrayal of old people is very rare, and though the character development is often bad in this movie, that doesn't change the fact that I really appreciated to see old people with real motives. I thought it was great to see that they're people just like everyone else, and they're just looking for happiness. And as pure and silly as that sounds, I thought that really was just beautiful, and how they showed that, and I really believe it. It's they developed these characters that you really want them to succeed, and I feel that's just not done in movies a lot. And unfortunately, this movie isn't good enough to continue that trend. I was really hoping this would be a great movie, because it would be awesome to see more of that, because it's not just for other old people to be wow, it's really just awesome to see people of our age being represented in movies with just having motivations to succeed and have happiness and live lives. Even though you're old, you still have a ton to do, and it's optimistic for younger people too, because in our society, I feel it's looked down upon aging so much, and to see old people who are just having a good time and are pretty much acting like younger characters. They make a comment in the movie I thought was really good, actually, about how Jackie Weaver's character says we're just a bunch of old women, but Diane Keaton doesn't see them as that. She sees them as young women who can just be cheerleaders, even though physically obviously they're not. That's what she sees themselves as, and I thought that was just awesome. And it just adds a bit of optimism for the younger audience, to see it's okay getting old. You still are yourself, and I thought that was really beautiful and touching. But other than that, and a few decent acting characters and some okay direction and visuals, there's not much to take away from this movie besides being some so bad it's good, just crazy all over the place tones. And I think this is a movie that maybe you should watch just for how whack it is. Not worth paying to see it in theaters, but it is a weird movie, and I'm glad I saw it, to be honest. It's not a boring, stupid movie or anything like that, but it is not good at all. So that leaves my overall score. What will I give it? I'm giving Poms a 1.5 out of 5. Yes, I know that's one of the lowest scores I've given on my channel, and I feel bad giving it. I really wanted to love this movie, but unfortunately it just did not rise up. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the movie down in the comment section below. Make sure to like and subscribe for more awesome movie-related videos. I have my top 10 super movies of all time video coming out very, very soon. So thank you for watching this Film Frenzy, signing off. Bye.